Hello and welcome to the 6th episode of Media Will Eat Itself, where we showcase the people behind modern content creation. Each episode we'll discuss the things that make media tick, talking to professionals from all walks of life. It's a media show about media people, and I'm your host, Shaun Weston. Today I'm talking to Christian Day, who runs Night Studios, a digital brand, content and experience agency. Clients include the NBA, Adidas, Chelsea Football Club and Google. He describes the design agency as intentionally small, and I opened our conversation by asking him about the philosophy behind this statement. With so much experience to tap into and questions to ask, let's crack on with the show.
Certainly. So my name's Christian Day. I'm creative director of a small creative agency called Night Studios, and we're based in between Bristol and Bath in a small village called Wickwar.
Okay, there's a lot of small going on there, Christian. So tell me about your agency. I noticed that in the About Us section on your website, you say intentionally small. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, when we first started, I didn't want to be one of those companies that was really, loads of overheads, loads of staff. And I really wanted that connection with the client as well. I didn't want a project manager in between, or that middleman where you don't get to hear firsthand what the client wants or what they need or who they are, what they're about and what their challenges are. You sort of get that filter of the project manager in between, and they sort of they then, when they pass it across to you, they almost give you their perspective on what they're hearing. And we didn't want that, or I didn't want that rather. So it was intentionally, it was just me to start with anyway, and then I quickly had someone else, another designer, because we scaled up quite fast with regards to the amount of creative briefs that were coming in, but I still want to just keep it creative led and also small as well, because I didn't want us to get to that scale of agency where you need to have a large agency space, which naturally means that you have to be in a city perhaps with a large rent and rates, etc. And and then you start to staff up, and so all of a sudden your minimum cost for a quite simple project starts to get quite large, and it takes you out of the ring for lots of business. So
it changes your personality as a business as well, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in a minute. But we started doing some work quite early on for a US agency. And the way they were structured was they were completely remote. So all of their staff were scattered all across the US. Yeah. And it sort of opens your eyes a little bit to what is possible, and that clients actually don't care where you are or what your structure is. All they worry about is that you do
the job.
High class work. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. World class creative for the right price on time, and you communicate well, all the usual kind of stuff that you'd want your creative agency to be. That's all they care about. So, and it really, we worked. We started working for them and doing. We were creative directing all of their work, which started quite small because they're based in Washington, and we were just doing some small local restaurants. So it was just bits and bobs. But then we started to pick up. Their names started to get known around Washington. They started to pick up some work for Google elections. And then we went to sort of NASA as well, because they were quite local. And then all of a sudden we're starting to just scale up their side. They were adding more staff. But
talk about name dropping big clients.
Yeah, I mean,
NASA.
NASA. We did like 2 or 3 projects for them. It was ridiculous. And then quite a few for Google, and we've done some since as well through people that worked at that agency that then left and started their own, and all that kind of stuff. But also we did for them, or through them rather, we did work for Facebook, Samsung, Intel, Red Bull, loads of work for Nike as well. And it's suddenly scaled quite fast, but we were doing some really good stuff, and they're quite a large team in the end.
We're kind of jumping ahead of ourselves, because what I wanted to do was get to know how you started. But the what you're saying here, I'm just filling my head with questions. And one of the ones that I kind of want to address straight away is, when you want to feel like a small agency, do a good job, and kind of have that quality of a small agency. How does that affect the perception of you by bigger clients? Because I guess...
Well, I think that... For me, and I say it to John, our designer, all the time, that when you go and sit down with a lot of these clients, like we do a lot of work for Adidas and we do a lot of work for Chelsea, day to day, and from the outside, you talk to people and they're like, Chelsea, God, Adidas. But if you go and speak to them and you sit in a room, they're just like me and you. Like, you haven't got to be afraid of them, and two, like, our relationship with them, we're friends, and they see us as an extension of their team. And we, it's a funny thing, but they know that we're small. They know how we're structured, and they appreciate that. And equally, they know they're getting a great level of service because we're not based in London, and we aren't, huge overheads. They know they're getting the same level of service, maybe better, I'd like to think, but for a far lower cost that really is a reasonable cost, as opposed to the sort of more London rates and stuff.
Yeah.
So
London rates are through the roof, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, the bigger clients, they're just big by name and by their product or the service that they deliver. The people that work for them, they're just the same as us.
Yeah.
So they're looking for a good deal, the same as anybody, just because they're who they are. You get the odd client that may think they're a bit special because of who they are, and I won't name drop a client, but we have had that before.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and I wouldn't force you to tell me.
But they're just, and you go and talk to these people, and you might be a bit nervous going to see them the first time. But you get in the room, and the minute you start talking, you realise they're just like me and you. They have normal lives, the same as me and you. Yeah. They just work for a marketing department or a branding department within a company that happens to be called this globally known brand. So once you get your head around that a bit, it doesn't. You start to feel okay about the structure of your business and the sort of side that you are, and actually you start to see the positives in it. In fact, that's how you sort of sell yourself from the start, and we still do now. Is that
part of that brand building of yourself is doing that. So before we jump ahead again, tell me a little bit about how you became a designer. Where did you start out?
Yeah, so Future Publishing was my first job. That was back in 1995, I think, when it was all black and white. I know. So I had a year out. I went to the usual route of going to college, university, and stuff. And I had a year out where I was trying to get jobs and wasn't being successful for whatever reasons. And you sort of look back now and you think your portfolio is great, and it probably was quite good, but it was so varied that I was going to these places and you could see them looking and thinking it's just not a fit for us, because I don't know, we didn't have that many. Apple Macs were still in their infancy, I guess, and we didn't have many of those at the university. So your work then showed that as well. So you'd go to these agencies that were more and more Mac based, and your work didn't fit with them. So it took me a year to get. I was lucky, actually. My dad's a barber. He cuts hair and talks for a living. Yeah. So he's one of his contacts happened to work at Future, and he got me an interview. I think I was lucky timing wise. I think that helps. Even in our business now, timing and luck comes into it.
It comes into it so much.
Yeah. And so I think I was lucky in that they needed somebody. And it was the weirdest interview as well. Like the main guy just walked in and he was reading the paper throughout the whole interview.
Oh, really?
And he didn't even speak to me.
Was that a ploy?
I don't know. It was just bizarre. So the art editor was talking to me, and we were having quite a nice interview. And the publisher was just sat there reading the paper for like 20 minutes.
How unusual.
40 minutes. And then he literally just fired 10 questions to me in like 10 seconds at the end. Yeah. Random things from like what car do you drive, what petrol to put in. And I'm just like, answering this stuff. And he just walked out, and that was it. And I got the job. So, yeah, I must have said the right things to him, I guess.
Well, what you don't know is that in the middle of that newspaper, he'd actually written down all his questions. He was rehearsing them in his head for like half an hour.
Well, possibly.
Yeah. So 15, I should give a disclaimer, because I actually worked at Future as well. And we did overlap when we were there. But I don't know if we worked on that many projects together directly. But you spent a long time there, didn't you? Was it 14, 15 years?
16 years in the end, I think, 15, 16.
Wow.
Wow. And my current business sort of overlapped with that again, because you start it as a side project and it starts to get a bit of traction and let's go. But 15, 16 years.
Okay, well, tell me how the design industry actually changed while you were there. Okay, so not afterwards, but how did it change in those 15 years that you were at Future?
I guess for me, I started in games magazines back in '95, and I guess for the mean, for 10 years, maybe not quite 10 years, but for like, it was really riding a wave, and like every year on year, there was growth, and we're making it, you know, the company was making loads of money, and it was showing, you know, and that was then the staff were feeling that as well. And you can see there was a buzz every year. People were really enjoying their jobs, and the budgets you had to work with weren't necessarily any better than they were at the end, when everyone's sort of budgets are getting cut and magazines are in decline. But there was just everybody loved their jobs, and you had teams on magazines that were the right amount of staff, and I think that's where things changed. So when the internet started to increase in everything, magazines started to decline in sales, and your budget started to get cut, and so it was harder and harder, certainly in that part of the industry, which is specialist magazines.
We should be fair to Future and say this was happening across all of publishing, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you look at magazines now compared to what they were back then, and they're completely different. You know, they've got to work a lot harder, and the types of magazines that are successful, I would think. I mean, I'm saying this now. I'm saying this as a consumer now, because I've worked in magazines for a long time, 10 years maybe. But yeah, I mean, it was, you know, design wise, obviously massively. I mean, we did work. Obviously, we did the work on Apple Macs, but then you'd send it to press, and you get back film that you'd have to check. Now it's just PDFs, and you see, you know, what you see is what you get. Then it was like you get all your CMYK film, and you checking it, and you were, you know, folios were missing. You'd splice one and tape it on, and like it was a completely different thing. Like, and it was hard to. It was hard. I remember like some of the mistakes that would cut, or errors that would come back on covers, for example, that you just didn't spot. Not me, but other, you know, magazines in the industry that weren't picked up, because you had to look at this film, and like a whole magazine of film is quite a big wedge of film.
Well, I can imagine, yeah.
So you know, the odd thing slips through, but there's some of the things that I've seen magazines with no logos on them, and you just think, how did that happen? Yeah. That wouldn't happen with a PDF. Like you would see there's no logo on there, but with film, like it was just so that massive change.
So the irony is that things were changing for the better. Things were getting faster in order to be able to produce a magazine, but there was a decline in magazines.
Yeah,
that's the irony.
That's yeah. I mean, technology. There was that point where everyone was thinking, "I'm sure this is amazing," and then suddenly that the side of technology that is the internet starts going, "Yes, this is amazing," and then magazines look over and, "Oh no, you are amazing," and we can't compete. Or I think it was hard for publishers to envision what the internet would be and the effect it would have, and I think they were too slow maybe to react, or too stubborn to react as well. And again, not just everything. Publishing. I think, and it's only now you see magazines that are working in a different way, structured in a different way, selling in a different way, speaking in a different way, I guess.
Yeah. So do you still think there's a life for magazines then?
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to look. You look at the newsstands now. And the newsstands now are completely different to what they used to be, with regards to the amount. And you look. I mean, I just myself. I know the magazines that I purchase. I mean, some of them you wouldn't even call magazines. They're just regular publications of you know, design publications, and they're things. They're sort of works of art. And then you look at others that are a lot more independent, I guess. Yeah. And the specialist titles have to work in a different way, I guess. It's you know, it's just different to what it was. Yeah. It's still great, and it still will be great. And I still love print, even though like
You've got a soft spot for it.
I read loads of books, and I still buy loads of books, and I refuse to read digital versions or audiobooks, or like, I just refuse, because I just like that tactile hand holding and the design of the covers. Like you might see a digital version on a screen. It's not the same as having it in your hand and, you know, feeling some embossing or whatever it may be, the print production.
See, I like the mix of everything. I like to be able to choose, because I think people think they have to do one or the other. You know, you have to be in the digital camp or you have to be in the paperback camp. And I quite like the fact that I can choose what I want to do. And I do like digital books, but I love that big Taschen book that you've got on the table, you know, and you can get hold of it and immerse yourself in it.
Yeah.
Choice. Yeah. It's great, isn't it?
It is. Yes, it really is. And I've been talking about the internet a bit. Just the way that opens up for agencies and freelancers, the way that opens doors, and it gives people to find you, I guess.
Yes.
I was thinking about this last night, actually. Like, it was so, when you left college, like, where'd you go? Where'd you look? How do you get a job? Now it's,
Well, do you think it's much easier then now? So the route to becoming a professional designer, the internet has helped it?
Well, yes and no. Yes, because you can have your own website, or you can use Behance, and people can find you really easy. But at the same time, you can find anybody and everybody, and there's thousands of millions of people with their portfolios online. Whereas or
what you think of their portfolios? Yeah.
Well, yeah,
yeah.
So I mean, it's yes and no, I guess, is my answer.
Okay.
I mean, it's still the sort of the proof in the pudding is still when you sit down and talk to somebody, and if they can really talk about their work and they really know what they're talking about, that's when you know that you found somebody, or they're really good designers, or yeah. So
you've been running your own company for quite some time now, and you've been your own boss. What's that feel like?
It's good, actually. It is. It's good, but it's hard. And I think this is the rub of having a small agency as well, is that you have to then do everything. You are new business. You are accounts. You are. If we do a website, I'll be doing all the me or John will be doing all the research. We'll having all the ideas, bouncing things around. We'll then take it into the wireframe stage and user experience, and then we take it into it's only the build side of things that we don't do. And then every part of it is you have to. So it can be quite stressful, because normally you're kind of shielded from all of that stuff. Certainly the project management side of it and the new business side of it. Yeah. And if you're at a larger agency, I guess you are client services. You're kind of shielded from the clients that you don't really want to talk to, or the ones that aren't. Because they can certainly say things in a certain way that if you're not, they haven't got tough skin, or if you're too precious about your work, you might get offended. Yeah. So,
well, tell me about that, actually. So when it comes to working with clients, new or old, what are their typical expectations of you?
I think that's changed as well, and I know a lot of our work that we do, I'd say 50-50. 50% of the work we do is content creation for brands, social channels, and I think because of, maybe not just because of that, maybe just because of social anyway, everything's immediate, everything's now. Like you swipe down to update it's just, there's new content now.
So speed. They want everything fast.
Yeah, so I think because of that immediacy, they expect it and everything, and certainly because of the work we do in content creation for social channels, like it's normally quite small, snackable content that you can create quite quickly, and because of that, I think there's that expectation across everything, certainly that we do anyway, and we sort of make a rod for our own backs, really, in that we are quite fast at creating it.
Yeah, and then word of mouth gets out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which we are, but it then means you have to work at that speed all the time. Yeah, exactly. And you put in late nights all the time, and you.
So in terms of skills as well, Christian. In terms of skills, are there expectations across the board? So perhaps in the past, when a client was looking for a designer, they wanted someone who had a great Photoshop skills. But now you have to have a broader set of skills. Would you say?
I think so. A broader set of skills, and always changing set of skills, I'll say. For example, so one of our clients, their strategy from the beginning of the year was we sat down with them and they said, in fact it was the year before maybe, they said, okay, we're changing our strategy from 70% static content and 30% motion to 30% static and 70% motion. So where we'd create the odd GIF now and then, suddenly they're wanting GIFs and they're wanting movie, like actual motion graphics. Yeah. And in fact, it wasn't even 70%. I'd say it was probably 90%. Like nearly everything we create now is a motion graphic. And suddenly you've gone from creating GIFs in Photoshop because it's quite quick and easy, and the client's going, oh, this is great. And it's getting loads of traction and loads of likes. And, it's working really well. And let's change this strategy. We'll do this. And suddenly you're thinking, oh, that's everything we do. And you start looking at what they want to create, and suddenly Photoshop's going to struggle to do that in as slick as you need it to be and as polished as you need it to be. So all of a sudden you have to be experts in After Effects, which the client doesn't know. They just know they want this motion graphic because everything's got motion.
Yeah. How did you adapt to that change personally? Was it a tough thing, or did you? No,
not really. No, but I think that comes with the territory. I think certainly as a small agency, and I guess freelancers will be in the same boat on this as well, because that landscape keeps changing all the time. Like, you have to change all the time, and you have to adapt. So, like, you've only got to swipe through your newsfeed to see that everything moves. It just does. And you start looking at Snapchat filters and even Snapchat lenses as well. So that's learning Snapchat's online application to create that lens. So there's nobody to ask, because it's brand new. So you have to dive in, play with it, like Google a few things, look on YouTube, just like teach yourself. And it's the same with the motion as well. We obviously, because of our years and decades on Photoshop, you look at After Effects and you sort of understand that there's the layers and there's that timeline and this is how it works, and it's kind of familiar, but actually everything's different. Yeah. So you can kind of pick it up quite quickly to a certain level, and it's quite. I was saying to John as well the other day, our designer, that it's quite nice to. We're almost learning on the job with the social content. So we're not being asked to create like a 10-minute film. We're being asked to create like a 10-second snackable piece of content that we can quick. So you're able to learn quite quickly, because even if it's not amazing, it's only a 7 out of 10. Well, it's gone down someone's feed in seconds.
Yes.
And the next time you do it, you can make it better again, and the next day make it better again, and suddenly your level is increasing. Before anyone realizes. So, and I think that's the same for smaller agencies and for freelancers, that you have to adapt, and that'll mean working late and putting in your own time to learn
to learn all of this stuff.
Whatever it may be, you need to learn. Yeah, and I mean, if you're a good designer, you generally can pick these things up quite.
Well, I think that's the point. I think you've just nailed it, actually, because I think you're being a little bit modest too. Is that we can teach ourselves these new things, but if you've got the experience and you've got the history of working in design and you've got an eye for these things, then the learning of, say, the next level of Snapchat can come. Yeah. You can bring yourself to it, right? You bring your own voice to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's that, and it's also having that vision of what you want to create. So it's the same with anything in Photoshop or any application. You have to know what you're. I see it all the time with. I remember having this is going back 10 years now. So this is when I was redesigning a magazine at Future, and I remember someone walking past me, and I had a sketchbook open with a pen, and I was sketching layouts on paper.
Yeah.
As you do, in my head, I thought that's what you're doing. And someone walked past me and went, "Ooh, old school." I thought, what? I couldn't get my head around that someone actually, because I can't remember which agency it was. I was watching a video of them the other day, and they said something that I was like, yes, exactly. And it was all about trusting your process. Uh-huh. And I think back to that now, and I think, well, this lad clearly didn't have a process of coming up. Whether that's a thing, and that's part of younger designers' process now, is that they just jump straight in because the application can, or they think can do it for you. I don't know, but
I think you've got a point. Yeah, I think it's conforming to a certain type of way of working as well. When the best of us, I think, are the ones that can use everything in their toolbox.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, they know the process. Absolutely. So tell me, are you a bit of a whiz when it comes to branding yourself then as a company? I mean, your own social media and the things you do for yourself.
No, we've done, I mean, with regards to, I think if you look at our site, it's just typed in. It just says Night Studio. But that was, it was always intentional in that I wanted to be about the work rather than us.
Mm-hmm. It's a clean site, you got to say. Yeah. But there are no social media channels that I could see anyway.
No, and we've mainly because we're too busy, to be honest, and because it's just us doing everything. So you have to, and we don't. I mean, with regards to work that coming in, we do approach, and we do, we don't do any pitches as such. We do the odd, probably done 2 pitches in 10 years or whatever. It's all word of mouth, and it's all, it all comes down to being nice, doing great work, and, people just pass that on. And you find as well within, so we do a lot of, it's changed over the years, but we do a lot of work in the sports industry for your Adidas and Chelsea Football Club, for example. We've done NBA as well, but people tend to move around as well. So you'll find people from Adidas going and working at another sports club, and then they'll go and work.
And they'll remember you because you built the relationship. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So it's just all about, everything we do is just based around that. Because we're small as well, we only have to bring in a certain level of work. Yeah. So there's less stress for us to go looking, although we do. But I mean, So I forgot what we were talking about.
Well, let me throw a couple of questions at you then that might spur you to think in a different direction. So if you could change something about running your own company, what would it be?
Crikey.
Do you know what? I thought you were going to say accounts straight away.
Accounts?
Yeah, keeping the books.
Well, no, it's not. No, it's not too bad. It's okay. It's okay. We're quite fortunate in that we've got some retainers that are sort of 12 monthly retainers that roll on, and that having that in the bank for the year is good. It keeps the doors open. So nobody likes doing their own accounts.
No, they really don't.
No, he does. It's like, I've got every Friday I can look at it now in my calendar every Friday, 40 or 5 accounts. Yeah, I'd never do. It's about to ping in a minute, and I never do. Yeah. I'll get to it when I get to it, and it's fine though. I mean, I guess I would. It's tricky. I know there's been years where, and being a new company, being personally having a growing family, etc. You tend to take on. You sort of say yes to all the work. You take on everything rather than being selective. So I think that would be the thing I would try and do differently, maybe, and try and specialize either, maybe not in maybe specialize into, because I love sport, so maybe I would have specialized in that earlier. But that's not to say. I know we've had some really interesting projects that were a million miles away from any active activities. We work for a New York-based company that creates protein shakes for pregnant women, for example, and they're an awesome client. And the guy that owns that company is an awesome client. We never would have hooked up with them if that would have been the case. So I think you need to. And the thing is, as well, like we talked about earlier, like the landscape changes all the time. I was going to say maybe it's motion that should have been your thing, but then in 2 years' time, or maybe even 2 months' time,
it'll be completely different.
It'll be something else.
Yeah.
So I think and I know the type of content we've created has changed over the years as well. I know sort of 3 years ago we were creating like weekly infographics. Those really tall ones you used to see online. If you look on Pinterest, you'll find thousands.
They must take so long to put together.
No, I was saying just the other day to someone that literally like a maximum of 2 weeks. Yeah. And those are the really illustrated ones as well. We've got a separate site that we use for housing those now, but we don't do any anymore really. There was 3-4 years ago we were doing loads. Just every other week we were doing another one.
Yeah. It's nice to hear these trends. Actually, it really is. Yeah,
trends change. So.
Yeah. So finally, then, because we should wrap this up. Half an hour's gone. What advice can you pass on to young graphic designers who are listening to the show right now on how they should be approaching their career and how they should be looking at it? Not that you haven't given us some great nuggets already, to be honest.
Well, I think we touched on. I think I mentioned something just now and I know it is a cliche and your classic. You see it sort of. Painted all over walls of studios, or be nice and work hard. Like clients, for example, we've fired several clients because they just weren't nice to work with, and clients don't want to work with designers that aren't nice either. It works both ways. So be nice for sure. Work hard. Like, it doesn't matter how talented you are. If you don't work hard, you're only halfway there. Yeah. And hard work will get you the rest of the way, but hard work also trumps talent as well. So and I know there are people, you hear all your Silicon Valley agencies and whatever saying like, don't work hard, work clever, and it's like, not really. Like, there's always like, you work clever anyway, but there's always or work smarter or whatever it is they say. Like, there's always somebody out there working harder than you, and they will they will get that client and they will get that. And that's not to say like just work. When we first started working, when we first set up and we were doing a lot of US work, we were working ridiculous hours. And I'm not saying do that, but yeah, work hard. And
there's natural talent, isn't there? And then there's sheer application and effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you've generally got to look at not design but sports to look at. People will always talk about these talented football players or these talented sportsmen that didn't have that attitude or that application, and it was wasted. That talent was wasted because they didn't.
Mario Balotelli.
Yeah.
I'll give you a list as a Liverpool fan.
I know. So I mean, and it's true across anything, not just sport, and not just design, and not just. So and I guess just keep learning as well. Like we talked about the landscape always changing. Like it will always change. Yeah. It may even come back to magazines again and print. Who knows? The internet might slide that way.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah,
maybe.
Well, thank you so much. Tell us how we can actually contact you. How do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, so our website is night-studios.com, and our infographics one is night-data.com. And
I'll put those links in the description.
Excellent. And Twitter, I think I am at Christian J Day, and we are at night_studios. I have Instagram and stuff as well, but it's more personal things really. So that's our business.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much. It's been absolutely brilliant talking to you, and I wish you luck. Thank you so much.
Very much. You too, Shaun. Thank you.
That was Christian Day. You can find him at nightstudios.com, so that's night-studios.com, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Hope you enjoyed it enough to leave a rating on iTunes or whatever podcast service you use. Thanks for all of the lovely messages that I've received from all over the world. Media is a great subject and it stands still for no one, so keep those messages coming. And take a look at my own website at shaunweston.co.uk for more information about me. And until next time, bye for now.